Welcome to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rachiele. Let's get into it. There has been breaking news in the NFL. There has been re-signings. There have been back and forth conversations with teams, and I want to have everyone understand this. We're going to be jumping around a little bit for the first two segments as we talk about the NFL. We're going to go up to the Northeast. We'll go down to the Midwest, the South, the West Coast. We're going to jump around a little bit here talking about the breaking news in the NFL. And let's start out with all the people out there in Buffalo, New York, because the Buffalo Bills made, in my opinion, a really good decision, and that is re-signing Matt Milano to a 4-year deal. $44 million. That's $11 million per year. Now, I understand that there are going to be people who are watching on the West Coast here in Las Vegas who are wondering why Matt Milano got an 11-year deal or $11 million per year deal. Understand that there are going to be people out there that are going to ask the logical question, why was he given that contract? Now, let me explain why. And if anyone who is a Buffalo Bills fan who's watching right now, you already know about this guy. You already know that he was their 2017 draft pick. You understand that in terms of his contract, it is going to matter when it comes to one player on the Buffalo Bills roster, and that is Tremaine Edmunds. Tremaine Edmunds is going to have a fifth-year option. There is the possibility that the Buffalo Bills are going to be looking at his contract after re-signing Matt Milano. They're both linebackers. They're both guys that are very important to defense in Buffalo. But I want to explain why Matt Milano is a big deal for the Buffalo Bills. I understand that they have two linebackers in Buffalo. They run a 4-3 system under Sean McDermott. But when he is healthy, when Matt Milano is healthy, he is a hard-hitting linebacker. He's a guy that can read the coverages. He is a guy for the Buffalo Bills that can get the job done when they need him on that defense. A very good defense with the Buffalo Bills. Also, understand one important aspect, and that is the fact that the Buffalo Bills are going to try to keep that defensive core around. They're going to try to keep key pieces from the Buffalo Bills around for a long time. So my angle about Matt Milano getting a 4-year deal, $44 million, I believe it is a good move for the Bills organization. I believe it is a good move for the NFL. You have guys like him who are very underrated, guys who don't get a lot of reaction from NFL fans getting money like that. So we talked about Matt Milano re-signing with the Buffalo Bills. Let's move over from Buffalo to the Atlanta Falcons because they re-signed their Pro Bowl kicker, Younghoe Koo. And I will point out that he has turned around the kicking situation in Atlanta. I understand that they have had Matt Bryant. I understand that they've had guys like Jason Elm in the past. But before Younghoe Koo, the Atlanta Falcons had a really long time a kicker that they could not rely on. So when it comes to Younghoe Koo being re-signed with the Atlanta Falcons, him getting that deal, I believe is great for Atlanta. I believe that Atlanta getting a guy like that from the kicking side was really one of the main highlights of a very abysmal season in Atlanta. That when you had a guy who made 27 consecutive field goals for Atlanta, and appreciating the fact that each of his 8 kicks from 50 yards deep made it, it's a no-brainer that the Atlanta Falcons had to re-sign him. He is a Pro Bowl kicker. And with the Atlanta Falcons, we're going to have to see what they do this offseason. They have Matt Ryan. They have Julio Jones, Todd Gurley. There's all this talent with the Atlanta Falcons organization, but I want to know if they can build a roster back up to contend in the NFC South. I want to see if the Atlanta Falcons have what it takes to be the best team in the NFC South, or are they going to be in a full rebuild mode? They trade the veterans, they get as much talent as they can, and then they let those guys go and they put them on a path to rebuilding the roster. So as we're talking about the NFL here on the Sports Angle, I am your host, Rocco Rachiele. We talked about the Bills re-signing Matt Milano. We talked about the Atlanta Falcons re-signing Younghoe Koo. But there's one player I want to see if he gets re-signed. And we're going to go from the South in Atlanta to the Midwest in Indianapolis. T.Y. Hilton has been an elite wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts for a couple of years. He had been a bright spot during the Andrew Luck era. T.Y. Hilton has had a lot of talent throughout his career. But I want to know, will the Indianapolis Colts bring back T.Y. Hilton, or will they move on and have a guy like Michael Pittman be their wide receiver of the future? And if they don't bring back T.Y. Hilton, are they going to bring back an elite wide receiver to have be his replacement? Will they add an A.J. Green, a veteran wide receiver, to take his place? Will they call up a team like Atlanta and bring in a veteran wide receiver like Julio Jones over to Indianapolis to be with Carson Wentz? Now, what I believe is going to happen is that the Indianapolis Colts organization knows that Carson Wentz has talent. They know about their running game with Hines and with Taylor and those options they have as a pass-catching running back. But from a wide receiver perspective, I want to know that the Indianapolis Colts trust those guys to get the job done. And I believe that if they don't re-sign T.Y. Hilton, that they can call up Atlanta and get Julio Jones. If the Indianapolis Colts do not bring back T.Y. Hilton, maybe they'll take Cincinnati A.J. Green as compensation. Because the Indianapolis Colts have Pittman, they have Pascal, I understand that, but they need someone else as a pass-catching option for Carson Wentz. So as we are talking about the NFL here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. If we transition from the Indianapolis Colts over to Miami, because the Miami Dolphins, they released Kyle Van Noy. They still have to make decisions about Tua. And more importantly, I want to know who's going to be their running back for the future. I want to know if the Miami Dolphins are set at the running back position, or are they going to go out and get a running back, maybe sign an Adrian Peterson on his retirement tour, maybe bring back Frank Gore to have his 1-year retirement tour be where he grew up at, and that is at Coral Gables. Because the Miami Dolphins have used plenty of running backs over the last couple of years. They had Lamar Miller, they had Jay Ajayi, they had Kenyon Drake, but those guys are no longer there. And they've had running backs in their system that they've used before. But I need to know if the Dolphins have a definitive number one running back in Miami, because I don't see it. I don't see them having a definitive number one running back in Miami. So I will not be surprised if they go out and get a number one running back for the Miami Dolphins. And I believe that they could go out and get a guy like Malcolm Brown for a very cheap alternative with the Los Angeles Rams to be that guy. Maybe they'll go to the Las Vegas Raiders and sign a Devontae Booker to be that running back for Miami. Somebody that's not going to cost a lot of money, however, will get the job done at the running back position for Miami. As we are talking about the NFL here on the Sports Angle, let's take it back home. Let's take it to the Las Vegas Raiders, because we have had Nelson Aguilar. We have seen with what they've done with Denzel Good, Nicholas Morrow. I understand that the Las Vegas Raiders have holes they need to fill. But on the defensive side of the ball, what kind of players could they go out and get this offseason? Who are players that they could look at and say, you know what, we're going to have them be here, we're going to have them be here, and we're going to have them be on the organization, be part of the roster? They need offensive line. I understand that. They need a wide receiver. I understand that. And they could add a linebacker to help with Vic Beasley potentially leaving. They could help with that linebacking core. They have Littleton. I understand that. They have Nick Kwiatkowski. But with the Las Vegas Raiders, they have plenty of fills they need to fix this offseason. And with the offensive line, they could go get Orlando Brown from the Baltimore Ravens. There's a good chance that they could take an opportunity on a veteran left tackle like Trent Williams. There is a variety of options the Raiders could do in this 2021 off season. With the wide receiver situation, I brought up Kenny Golladay on an earlier show. I've brought up the fact that they could go get John Brown, AJ Green, Marvin Jones, Alan Lazard. There is a possibility that the Raiders could replace Nelson Aguilar if they move on. And with the linebacking core, Kyle Van Noy, there are options there at that position that they could get at a cheaper price. The Las Vegas Raiders are definitely going to need help. And what we're going to do after we come back from the break here on the Sports Angle is I'm going to take a look at the players the Raiders could get this offseason. I will break it down position by position, and I will explain to you here on the Sports Angle why they should do it or why they shouldn't do it. This is the Sports Angle. I am your host, Rocco Rachiele. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Let's get back into it. Now, in the last segment, I told all of you that I was going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders and what they need to do this offseason. This is going to be part of our Vegas report here on the Sports Angle. And we've talked about quarterbacks, we talked about wide receivers, offensive line in the past. But I really want to break down position by position what the Raiders can do. Now, the one main vocal point is their salary cap situation. They only have one player with a cap hit over $20 million, and that is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is at $22.1 million cap hit. We have talked about this earlier in the show. We've talked about this numerous times here on the Sports Angle, that when you have a guy with that big of a cap hit, unless you are 100% confident that he is going to be your quarterback next year, you have the option to let him go before June 1st. And more importantly, he would only be a dead cap of $2.5 million. Understand that you also have guys that if you wanted to let go, you could. Corey Littleton, the linebacker that they got in free agency a couple of years ago, he has a $19 million cap hit that would suffer the Raiders if it happened. So most likely, the Raiders would not let Littleton go because it would cost them $19 million in dead cap. Similar to Rodney Hudson, their all-pro center. He would cost them $15 million in dead cap. And I'm going to tell you something about the NFL. Unless a player is a nuisance, unless a player has dropped a lot in productivity, if a guy just took the bag and went home, normally teams do not want to release players with that big of a cap hit because it would cost them normally more money to release them than it would to keep them on the roster. Let me give you a Raiders example. Defensive end Ceylon Farrell. His cap hit is $8.5 million. But if they were going to release him, it would cost them $18.5 million to do so. That is how much money the Raiders would lose if they let him go. So logic dictates that the Raiders would keep Farrell on their roster and save themselves $10 million in the process. So as we are breaking down the Raiders salary cap here on the Sports Angle, I'm bringing this up for a reason. I'm saying this to all of you because it matters. And why does it matter? Because this offseason, the Raiders have money that they can spend. The Raiders, outside of LaMarcus Joyner, does not have anyone above $1 million on their dead cap. That's very important. More importantly, when it comes to their salary cap, they have $156 million in total, which means they have a little over $30 million to spend this offseason. So if the Raiders play their cards right, they can rebuild that offensive line, but with that $31 million in salary cap. They could potentially replace Nelson Aguilar with a good wide receiver with that money. And if they let go of Derek Carr, they could save themselves nearly $20 million. So if you have $51 million in cap space, that could get you a quarterback, a wide receiver, an offensive line, add a defensive back, bring in a linebacker to replace Nicholas Morrow. With the Raiders situation, Mike Mayock and John Gruden are going to have to get to work. Mike Mayock and John Gruden this offseason are going to have to figure out what players they're going to re-sign, what players they're going to let go. The draft is coming up very soon. They have 6 picks in that draft. What are they going to do with those picks? That's very important. Now, what I believe the Raiders should do is I'm going to start at the quarterback position. Okay, at the quarterback position, there has been talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. And in my opinion, when it comes to Las Vegas Raiders, I would not do anything yet. I would not press that button unless you have to. Derek Carr, if you let him go, you let him go. But I would not do it until May. I would not do it until June. Why? Because by that point, you've done the NFL draft. By that point, you know what's happening in the NFL. And if there is a certain quarterback who hasn't been traded yet, you could look at that and say, let's pull the trigger on that and let's get that done. If in the NFL draft, the Raiders decide to draft a Kyle Trask, if they decide to draft a Jamie Newman, maybe a Sam Ehlinger, if they draft a young quarterback in day 2, or maybe in round 5, round 6, round 7, that could be a telltale sign that the Raiders are planning on moving on with one of their quarterbacks. But I would not do it until May or June, because you have to understand that the Las Vegas Raiders have more needs, more priorities, and they have to get stuff done now. Now, we heard about Mark Ingram going to the Houston Texans from the Baltimore Ravens, but I want to know if the Las Vegas Raiders have to do something on the running back side. I say yes. And in my opinion, if you do not re-sign Devontae Booker, how about you replace him with a Tyler Ervin from Green Bay? Maybe you let go Devontae Booker and you bring in a veteran like Lamar Miller. Here's why I say this. Understand that when it comes to the Raiders organization, they have Josh Jacobs, but you have to have a back to be on the field when Josh Jacobs is not on the field. Understand that when Devontae Booker is not going to be on that roster anymore, you have to get somebody that can take his place. I have watched Tyler Ervin in Green Bay, and I believe he would be a solid guy to have on that roster. Lamar Miller, I remember him with the Houston Texans. He's not washed up yet. He is not at the end of his career. He's getting there, but he's not there yet. So if you are willing to take a chance on Lamar Miller, pay him $1 million, pay him $1.5 million, have him be the backup to Josh Jacobs here in Las Vegas. Maybe go get a guy like Kajon Barner from Tampa Bay. Once again, a veteran running back that you can have behind Josh Jacobs, because that's what they would need at the running back position. Somebody who's a veteran that can be behind Josh Jacobs. He'll have a couple carries. He'll have some passes tossed his way. But more importantly, they will not be on the field for a good percentage of the game. That's what the Raiders need. So at the running back position, Lamar Miller, Tyler Ervin, Kajon Barner, that would be very solid pickups for the Raiders organization. Wide receivers, we kind of talked in detail about that on the show yesterday. But for the people who haven't listened to that show, let me talk about how Tim Patrick, coming from Denver to Las Vegas, could be a solid option. If they were going to bring in a guy that's only 28 years old, he could replace what Tyrell Williams was last year. Maybe if they don't want to do that, maybe you bring in a Chris Moore from Baltimore to replace Zay Jones. I mean, understand that Zay Jones was a guy that played a certain percentage of the game, but we need to understand that Zay Jones might be on his way out. Chris Moore from Baltimore would fill that need that Zay Jones did last year. How about you take a chance on a Philip Dorsett, a former first-round pick? We saw with Nelson Aguilar that John Gruden and Mike Mayock are willing to take chances on former high draft picks. They did that with Zay Jones as well. So maybe Philip Dorsett could be that option in Las Vegas. The point I'm making is that if they don't get Kenny Golladay, if they don't get Allen Lazard, Marvin Jones, if they do not go out and get the big guys, that's okay. They can fill those gaps with guys who are very underrated, like a Tim Patrick. They can go after guys that were former top draft picks, like a Philip Dorsett, because they need to replace that talent with guys who have been in the NFL for a couple of years, guys who know their role, know the system, and they will be able to get the job done in Las Vegas. And the tight end position is set with Darren Waller, but it doesn't hurt to bring in a second tight end in the Raiders system. It would not hurt to whoever the quarterback is to have a second tight end to be on that roster. How about they bring over a guy who was with Kansas City, was with Dallas? How about Blake Bell? Blake Bell has been in the NFL for a couple of years. If you wanted to have a second tight end to do what Jason Witten did last year, Blake Bell could be a solid opportunity there, because having a 2 tight end set would help the offense. Having two guys on that line would be able to help the Raiders long term. So I believe that when it comes to the Raiders organization, getting 2 tight ends, bringing in a couple extra wide receivers, having that opportunity for them to have players like, for example, at the running back position as a veteran, that's what I would focus on first. I would focus on those guys with the Raiders before we do the quarterback position. And since somebody asked, who are the people that I would focus on the offensive line? Well, understand that there are younger guys like Zach Banner from Pittsburgh. He could be someone they bring in. How about a Marshall Newhouse if they want to bring in a veteran to be on that offensive line? There are plenty of options the Raiders can bring in this offseason. I think Banner, I think Newhouse would be a solid guy to bring in just if they need a cheaper alternative. That's my explanation, a cheaper alternative. How about taking a chance on Joe Thuney? He was with the New England Patriots, multi-time Super Bowl champion. If they were willing to spend the money, they could have him be that guard that replaces Gabe Jackson. Maybe call up New Orleans and get Nick Easton, because Nick Easton with New Orleans could fill that role that Richie Incognito had with the Raiders organization. The point I'm making with this segment is that the Raiders should look to replace guys with younger, cheaper alternatives, because the Raiders are not winning this year. It's simply not going to happen. And because the Raiders are not going to win this year, you are going to want to break down that salary cap. You're going to want to lessen that burden of the amount of money you're spending. So my angle, as we're about to head to break, is the Raiders, before they do the quarterback position, is they need to find cheaper, younger alternatives at the running back, at wide receiver, at tight end, even on the offensive line, because the Raiders are not going to win this year. So why would you spend the excess money to make it happen? This is the Sports Angle. I am your host, Rocco Rachiele. We're going to be right back. We're going to talk about MLB. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to the Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Well, let's get back into it. Getting into our MLB conversation. I mean, when it comes to starting pitching, we have seen what teams are doing in this offseason. We have seen the fact that when it comes to teams in the AL West, teams in the NL West, which we will get into on tomorrow's show, that starting pitching has become essential, that getting a solid rotation is important. But what about the teams that are using these older guys to sell tickets? What about the fact that you have some teams that are banking on these older guys, these starting pitchers that were good a decade ago, to put butts in seats? Understand that the San Francisco Giants are a prime example of this. Using guys like Johnny Cueto as your starting pitcher, it isn't as good as it used to be. But Johnny Cueto is not the Cincinnati Red Johnny Cueto anymore. He is San Francisco Giant 2021 Johnny Cueto. So to start this segment off, I will say that Johnny Cueto, if he is your guy in San Francisco, then that shows the lack of depth in the Giants roster. It shows the lack of starting pitching the Giants have in their organization. Let's also talk about the fact that the Los Angeles Angels have had the same problem. They go out and sign veterans to be their starting pitching. They've had guys like Dylan Bundy be their starting pitching in the past. I want everyone to understand that for every San Francisco Giant and Los Angeles Angel that use veteran starting pitching for them to be their point, there is the Los Angeles Dodgers. There are the San Diego Padres that have so much starting pitching, they have to make the very tough decisions on who they're going to put in the bullpen. They have to make tough decisions on out of the 7 starting pitchers they have at their disposal. They can only use 5. I mean, the Los Angeles Dodgers have Kershaw, they have Buehler, they have Julio Urias, they have Dustin May, David Price. There is so much starting pitching. Tony Gonsolin. The Los Angeles Dodgers have one of the deepest starting rotations in all of baseball. San Diego Padres, you have Chris Paddock, you have Lamet, you have Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Mike Clevenger. There is so much starting pitching that's not even in the farm system. They have 2 starting pitchers in their farm system that can help them out. So the Dodgers and Padres are set with their starting pitching. They're going to be good. They're going to be great in 2021. But on the opposite side, the Angels are going to struggle to win games with their starting pitching. The Giants are going to struggle to win games with their starting pitching. And let's not even get started on the Oakland Athletics. The Oakland Athletics have some talent on their starting pitching. You have Sean Manaea. You have guys coming up in your system like Jesus Lizarato. But understand that the Oakland Athletics are going to do what the Oakland Athletics have always done. And that is bring in veterans, bring in one-year deals, find the diamonds in the rough, and have them be your starting pitching. I mean, the Oakland Athletics are probably going to finish 500 once again, just because they find guys that people don't respect. They find players that are undervalued, and they bring them to Oakland. So out of the California teams, out of the 5 California teams that are in MLB, where would you rank them? I want everyone in the comments right now to answer this question. Out of the 5 MLB California teams, Angels, Dodgers, Padres, Giants, and Athletics, where would you put them? Because, my opinion, I would have the LA Dodgers at 1. They are the reigning World Series champions. Starting rotation's great. Bullpen is solid. Their infield is excellent. Their outfield is one of the best in all baseball. Number 2 is San Diego. They're on the rise. They're building themselves up very, very steadily. And I like their starting rotation. Their bullpen could use some work, but they're probably going to get that fixed. Next, I would have the Oakland Athletics. They are in the middle for a reason. They're not great enough to win a championship, but they're not bad enough to suck. Then you have the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Angels. Now, I have the Angels at 4 just because they have Mike Trout. If they didn't have Mike Trout, they didn't have Shohei Ohtani, if they didn't have that talent like Anthony Rendon in Los Angeles, I would put them as the worst team in MLB. Okay, outside of those 4 names I just mentioned, the rest of that roster is awful. Okay, it is average at best. So I have the Angels at 4, and then I have the Giants at the bottom. The Giants are going to be the bottom of the California teams. Most likely are going to be the bottom of the NL West. They're going to compete with Arizona for that title of the worst team in the National League West. Because when it comes to the San Francisco Giants, they have a bunch of old guys. They have some young talent, but for the most part, it is just old guys on top of old guys on top of old guys. And look, this isn't the NBA. This is not the NHL where you can have an older roster and still win. No, in MLB, young talent take over. Younger guys fill that roster. There's a reason why the Dodgers' young talent took over in the 2020 World Series. That's why we've seen the Astros, the Nationals, the Cubs. They've won World Series in the past. I mean, heck, for anyone who's a Giants fan, you most definitely will remember that you won those World Series titles off of your young Madison Bumgarner, off of your young Buster Posey. You won that talent off of younger guys. The Giants simply do not have that. They have Joey Bart. They have some younger guys, but it's not enough to win. So as we're talking about MLB here on the Sports Angle, look, in the next segment, we'll get to the Northeast. We'll talk about the Yankees. We'll talk about the Red Sox. But I want to focus on the West for right now. Because for the people who are here in Las Vegas, you will know that the Las Vegas MLB expansion has gotten popular. You will know that the Oakland Athletics moving to Las Vegas could be a reality. But let's not stop at just Las Vegas. Portland has been in the conversation of getting an MLB team. Vancouver has been in the conversation about getting an MLB team. So regardless of what West Coast team does get that expansion team, here's my angle. My angle is that if Portland gets the expansion team, Las Vegas will get the relocation. If Las Vegas gets the expansion team, Vancouver will get the relocated team. And if Vancouver gets the expansion team, Portland will get the relocation team. Understand that somehow, some way, 2 of those 3 are going to get an MLB franchise. Portland has the backing. They have the money. They have investors that are willing to get an MLB team there. Vancouver, MLB has wanted a Canadian team back in MLB for a long time. Okay, they lost Montreal, but they want somebody else to take that place, to have 2 Canadian teams out there in MLB. And in Las Vegas, this is the entertainment capital of the world. They've had Big League Weekend. They've had the Oakland Athletics visit Las Vegas multiple times to check out the situation. They had the Arizona Diamondbacks a couple of years ago check out Las Vegas as a possible destination to move. So with Las Vegas being popular, Portland being popular, Vancouver being popular, I'm going to leave this to you. out of the trio that I mentioned, will it be Portland, will it be Vancouver, or will it be Las Vegas that gets that expansion franchise? And which one will get the relocation of the Oakland Athletics? Who could get the possible relocation if it actually falls through? Because I've given you my angle. I believe that Las Vegas, if they get the expansion team, then Portland would get the relocation. If Portland gets the expansion team, Vancouver will get the relocation. And if Vancouver gets the expansion team, Las Vegas would get the relocation. Moral of the story is that I am confident that 2 of those 3 cities will get a team in MLB by the end of this decade. And I am your host, Rocco Kelly. This is The Sports Angle. We'll be right back. We're going to continue our MLB conversation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're going to continue our MLB conversation. Don't go anywhere. Back to The Sports Angle, live in Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Let's get back into it. Continuing our baseball conversation. In the last segment, I talked about the California teams. I talked about the AL West, NL West. We'll do a full preview of that on Friday. But for today, to end off this show, I want to move over to the Northeast. I want to talk about the AL East, the NL East, and more importantly, I want to talk about prospects. I want to talk about the fact that there are teams that are just loaded in their farm system, that there are teams that, regardless of the position, regardless of their MLB, AAA, AA, single A rank, they have some of the deepest farm systems in all of baseball. And at number 1 is a team that just made it to a World Series. The number 1 team is a roster that lost Blake Snell, but they still are loaded with talent that are 20, 21 years old. And that is the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays have 8 players in the top 100. And out of those top 8, that is Wander Franco, who is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball. Understand that Wander Franco, this 20-year-old phenom, has been considered a generational talent that went to Tampa Bay. Understand that he received the highest signing bonus of any amateur athlete in 2017. The Tampa Bay Rays signed him to a contract a little under $4 million on July 2nd, 2017. Okay, he came over from the Dominican Republic, and he won the Appalachian League MVP as a 17-year-old. Okay, he's played in Class A Advanced. He was in the All-Star Future game in 2019, and he will continue his climb towards the majors in 2021. Now, let me explain to you why Wander Franco is the number 1 prospect. Because according to scouts, he has all the physical tools to be a superstar in MLB. He has natural ability to be a switch hitter and one of the best of his generation. His bat speed, electric. He has strong hands, and he knows how to manipulate his swing to put the barrel to ball and make consistent hard contact to all fields. If that description doesn't tell you how valuable Wander Franco is going to be for Tampa Bay, I don't know what will. Now, he is scheduled to be in AAA in 2021. There has been discussion that he could join the Tampa Bay Rays in 2021. Honestly, I want to see that happen. I want to see Wander Franco be alongside Willie Adames, Brandon Lowe, Joey Wendell, Hyman Choi. The Tampa Bay Rays could have one of the most loaded infields in all of baseball. I mean, not bad for a team that doesn't spend money. Not bad for an organization that is known for its cheapness. Let's also talk about a prospect that balled out in the World Series, and that was Randy Arozarena. He is a prospect in the Tampa Bay Rays organization, and we saw what he did in a partial season. Imagine what he can do in a full season. What about guys that are starting pitching like Brendan McKay, like a Shane McClanahan? They have pitchers that can get to MLB in 2021. So the fact that 6 of the 8 prospects in the top 100 for Tampa Bay are projected to make the roster in 2021, watch out for Tampa Bay. But let's also focus on the team that is number 2 in terms of prospects, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Baltimore Orioles aren't going to suck, but the fact that they have 5 players inside the top 100, and that does include the number 2 prospect in MLB and Adley Rutschman. Understand that they have Grayson Rodriguez, D.L. Hall, Ryan Mountcastle. The Baltimore Orioles have prospects in their system that will make them great. If anyone goes back and listen to my Monday show, I did a preview of the AL East, and I said the pro for the Baltimore Orioles is a strong farm system. And the fact that they are number 2 in MLB should tell you how strong their farm system is. But as we're talking about the prospects here in MLB, as long as we are talking about all these teams that have a rich farm system in Major League Baseball here on the Sports Angle, I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. Let's move on to a team that's right behind the Orioles, the team that is ranked 3rd out of all prospects, and that is the Detroit Tigers. They have Spencer Torkelson, Casey Mays, Riley Green, Matt Manning. Their 5 prospects are all in the top 100. That should tell you how strong the Tigers farm system is. That all 5 of their top 100 prospects are in the top 25. Matt Manning is going to be on their major league roster in 2021, a phenomenal starting pitcher. Casey Mays, a former top draft pick. Well, guess what? He's going to make his debut in MLB. He's going to be a guy that's going to be in that organization future for the next couple of years. So when you have Casey Mays, you have Matt Manning, you have Tyreek Skubal, they have starting pitching coming to the main roster, and it's going to make a big impact in Detroit. And next year in 2022, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green will both make their debut for Detroit. So for all the Tigers fans that are upset about the current roster, that's okay. Because by 2022, you're going to have all of this talent on the main roster. At number 4 is the Seattle Mariners. All right. The Seattle Mariners are number 4 on prospects, and it makes a lot of sense. They have 6 top 100 prospects. They have Julio Rodriguez, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Taylor Trammell. The Seattle Mariners are going to be a team to watch this year. When I do my AL West conversation on Friday, I'm going to want you to pay attention to Seattle, because I believe that they have the opportunity to surprise people in 2021. Yes, I'm hyping up tomorrow's show because it's going to be all MLB. We're going to talk AL West. We're going to talk NL West. I want you to pay attention to Seattle. Okay, you have George Kirby and Taylor Trammell. They're going to be on the main roster this year, and I think that Seattle has a lot of talent, a lot of potential, and I believe that with them having the number 4 farm system, that's going to help them out. And I mentioned the San Diego Padres in the last segment. Well, at number 5 is the San Diego Padres. Think about all the talent I mentioned in the last segment. Then let's add the fact that they have the number 5 farm system. They have CJ Abrams. They have Mackenzie Gore. They have Robert Hassel. They have prospects in San Diego that are going to make them even better next year. The San Diego Padres have a starting pitcher in Mackenzie Gore, who is projected to make the starting rotation at some point this year. So when you have Blake Snell, you have Yu Darvish, you have Chris Paddock, you have Lamet, you have Mike Clevenger, and then you add Gore, the Padres are going to be loaded. The Padres are going to be a fun team to watch in 2021. Now, very quickly, with a couple of minutes left, I want to break down the top 10. I'm just going to tell you who the rest of the top 10 are. At number 6 is the Kansas City Royals. At number 7 is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Number 8, the Toronto Blue Jays. At number 9, the Atlanta Braves. And at number 10, the St. Louis Cardinals. The reoccurring theme there. Kansas City is on the rise. They're at number 6. I like Bobby Witt Jr. He is going to be their face of the franchise when he does make their debut. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to suck. But when they have Brian Hayes make his face of the franchise impact, watch out for them. Toronto, you have Gurriel, you have Guerrero, Bichette, Biggio, and then you add a pitcher like Nate Peterson to the organization. Oh, Toronto's going to be good. Atlanta, they have all these outfielders in their organization. You have Austin Riley, you have Ron Acuna Jr., and then you add Christian Pop. The Atlanta Braves are going to be deadly in 2021. I have them second in the NL East, but I did make them making the playoffs. Their prospects are going to be a big reason why. And at number 10, I have the St. Louis Cardinals because the Cardinals, in fact, have Dylan Carlson. They have all this talent in the outfield, O'Neill, Fowler. You have guys in their organization like Harrison Bader. The St. Louis Cardinals, if they play their cards right, if the St. Louis Cardinals do it the right way, understand that with them being at number 10 in their prospect system, when you look at the top, when you rank the prospects, when the Cardinals being at number 10, that is a good sign. Let's also break this down with about 2 minutes left, the top 15. At number 11, you have the Chicago White Sox. They're going to be good next year. Their prospects, they still have a good amount left, but majority of them have made the main roster. Miami Marlins at number 12. Miami is going to be towards the bottom of the NL East this year, but don't worry. They have those prospects that are coming up very soon. San Francisco Giants are next. I don't have much positive to say. Their prospects are not top elite, but they're not towards the bottom as well. Minnesota Twins, majority of their prospects have been called up to the main roster, but they still have Royce Lewis. They have Alex Krylov. Those guys are going to be prospects to watch out for. So at number 14, Minnesota. And at number 15, with their organization, is the New York Yankees. I mean, it's interesting to say that the Yankees are at number 15, but Jason Dominguez is a spotlight for the New York Yankees. In fact, I will post the link of the ranking system to find out where your team is because we're running out of time here on the Sports Angle. I'm your host, Rocco Rachiele. So long, everyone.